This video is a request from Ms. Good Energy. Thanks, Ms. Good Energy, for all your support. From explanations of gravity to fake photos from space. Stay tuned to number 1 to find out whether or not the Earth really is flat. Number 10. Who are they? In the last couple of years, you may have heard about the Flat Earth Society, but you may not know what they are exactly. This society functions as a group that promotes the idea that, well, you've guessed it, the Earth is, in fact, a flat surface. This idea has been around for thousands of years, ever since the advent of science and scientific research in the ancient times. However, much has changed since then. In the Renaissance period, many astronomers found solid proof that the Earth was round and not flat. Over the course of the centuries, this became a proven scientific fact, but not to flat earthers. So many people around the world still believe that the Earth is flat that they are trying to prove it correct. The Flat Earth Society is one of those organizations. The old beliefs are called the Round Earth Doctrine, and they are trying to keep it alive and bring it to as many people as possible. Number 9. Zetistics. No, not statistics, zetistics. This is actually a term originating from ancient Greek, zeticism, and all those who practice it are called zetetics. This is actually a system for scientific inquiry, and flat earthers have adopted it completely. Basically, zeticism is this: make your own conclusions based upon your own research. Now, this may sound like an oversimplification, but it's actually true. In your standard scientific approach, you have an initial theory which is proposed by a scientist, and then that scientist or others try to prove whether or not the theory is true. Well, in zeticism, it's the other way around. A zetetic doesn't form the theory first, but rather starts by researching and making their own conclusions. As for the flat earthers, they don't form the theory first, discussing whether or not the Earth is flat. They simply start researching it and writing down their conclusions. They simply skip the theory part, because they feel more natural and closer to science to delve into the research right away, without any preconceived notions. I hope this makes sense to you. It sure does to them. Number 8. Samuel Shenton. Before it all came to this with the Flat Earth Society, it all started on a major scale from the teachings of Samuel Shenton. But before we talk about him, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click that little notification bell too, so you can always stay up to date on new videos from Zero to Hero. So, who was Samuel Shenton? He was the founder of the Flat Earth Society back in 1956, when he decided to rename the Universal Zetetic Society. Shenton was what you would call a relentless person, because he advocated for the flat earthism wherever he could, from student organizations and political groups to youth clubs. He was especially active during the 1960s space race, when everybody went crazy about the idea of going into space. During these 1960s, Samuel Shenton was a frequent guest of many TV programs, discussing his views and trying to convince people in the round Earth theory. On the other hand, he was an elementary school dropout, and many people saw this as a sign of his, well, lack of intellectual ability, to put it lightly. Shenton refused to acknowledge any of the breakthroughs during the space race, claiming that the satellites were simply circling around our disk world and that the South Pole was nothing more than a great wall of ice, beyond which there was nothing. Maybe that's where George R.R. Martin got his inspiration for the ice wall in Game of Thrones. Number 7. Bedford Level Experiment. Many flat earthers claim this to be one of the most important experiments in the whole backlog of the Round Earth agenda. Although its name is singular, not plural, the Bedford Level Experiment actually includes a series of experiments that were carried out in the 19th and 20th centuries in Cambridgeshire Fens, UK. The location chosen for the experiments was ideal because it ran in a straight line for 6 miles. The researchers placed 3 poles in the water trying to prove that the Earth was in fact flat, because all of the poles would be the same size. The poles were fixed in the water at equal height along the length of the river. According to the researchers, there was no evidence for the hypothetical curvature of the Earth, because all 3 of the poles aligned perfectly. That was the proof of the Earth being flat. But there is a scientific explanation for this. atmospheric refraction. Because of air density, light rays travel horizontally, thus creating the effect noted in the Bedford-Level experiment. The Earth appears to be flat, but it's not actually. However, there are still many flat earthers who simply refuse to accept this as fact. Number 6. Not a religion, but... The flat earth theory has nothing to do with any religion, although there have been many who have tried to link it with certain religious teachings. However, as with everything that has to do with this theory, things are a bit more complicated. Some 52% of flat earthers are very religious. Now, what's very interesting is to understand why the flat earth theory became so popular even among those who don't see themselves as very religious at all. The answer probably lies in the fact that so many people love a good conspiracy theory and proving their government wrong. So I guess everyone has their reasons, right or wrong. Number 5. What about space? In the 1960s, everything we thought we knew about space changed. The space race between the USA and the USSR reached its climax in 1969 when the US mission landed on the moon, ending the space race in the favor of the United States. It was around that time that humanity got its first pictures of Earth from outer space. Before that era, we could only guess what the Earth looked like. Stanley Kubrick, the director of 2001: A Space Odyssey, was especially pleased because the concept photos used in his film 1 year before the actual moon landing were quite close to the actual footage of Earth made by the US mission. It was easy to prove, at that point, that the Earth was in fact round, which was solid proof for all those theories claiming so. However, this wasn't enough for the flat earthers. For them, it was all just a cover-up mission to hide the actual truth. During the space race, it was a mutual agreement between the USA and the USSR, and when the Cold War ended, they just kept the idea alive so that they could fund space travel programs and earn more money in the process. I know that flat earthers don't like theories, but this is definitely a theory, no doubt about it. Number 4. The look of the Earth. So the Earth is not round, but flat, according to the information that flat earthers have. But what about all those pictures of the Earth? All those pictures that have been taken throughout the decades? Are all of them faked? Well, if you ask flat earthers, the pictures cannot be trusted. You guessed it, it's all part of the cover-up. For them, photography cannot simply be trusted, especially not in this day and age. The pictures can be altered and manipulated way too easily, and cannot be taken as solid evidence. Well, even if you don't want to agree with them about the shape of the Earth, one thing's clear, pictures can definitely be manipulated. Today, it's easier than ever, so 1 point for Team Flat Earth. Number 3. The problem with gravity. We can all easily accept the argument that photographs are not good enough evidence to claim that the Earth is indeed round and not flat. But luckily, there are other pieces of evidence that have supported this theory throughout the centuries. One of them is definitely gravity. You cannot simply disregard gravity because, well, it's there. Ever since Sir Isaac Newton experienced the famous incident with the apple falling on his head and forming his theory, gravity has stayed with the scientific community as solid proof of the Earth being a round celestial body with its own gravitational field. However, flat earthers beg to differ. The biggest problem with the notion of gravity is that regular scientists claim that Earth simply wouldn't survive as a flat surface. Gravity would pull it all into a sphere. Of course, the flat earthers have a ready-made answer, and it goes like this. The Earth doesn't have as strong of a gravitational field as is claimed. Sure, gravity exists, but it's much weaker than imagined. Thus, there's no force strong enough to pull the flat Earth into a sphere because the Earth is speeding up as it moves. Not only that, but it could also be that the Earth is sitting on an infinite plane. Well, that's a lot of theories from a group that doesn't like to theorize. Number 2. The problem with weather. Okay, so photography isn't proof and gravity isn't proof. But what about the weather? The cycle of the seasons? As you could have guessed by now, there is a flat Earth answer to that one as well. According to their research, the Earth doesn't revolve around the sun. In fact, what happens is that the sun circles around the North Pole. Yep, you heard me right. Literally, when the sun is over our heads, it's daylight, and when it's not, well, you get the picture. And the climate is created by the regions of the world. Where it's warm, water evaporates faster and turns into clouds, and a lot of rain. I know, it sounds oversimplified, but that's what the flat earthers are saying. And all of this leads us up to the final question of all. Is there any scientific backup for the flat Earth theory? not theory? Number 1. What does actual science say? Whoa, okay, where do we start? First of all, if the Earth was flat, gravity, even a mild one, would still be in effect. But it would be stronger in the middle of the disk. Practically, it wouldn't pull down evenly across the whole disk, but it would be much stronger in the middle of it, pulling all the water straight into the center of the disk. Also, plants and trees would grow diagonally. Furthermore, the sun wouldn't simply hover over the Earth, but would probably crush into it, destroying it completely. There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that the sun can move over the Earth casually without affecting it in a major way. And last but not least, there's traveling in the flat Earth world. If you look at any map of the flat Earth, there's a great distance between, let's say, Australia and certain parts of the South Pole, or Antarctica. Depending on the location, it would take an enormous amount of time to cross the distance. Not only that, but it would be practically impossible to cross the entire continent of Antarctica if there were a giant ice wall around the Earth. However, this has been done many times, as many people have crossed Antarctica. There's so much evidence against the flat Earth theory, but flat earthers are holding on to their own. Talk about determination. Let us know your thoughts on flat earthers in the comments below, and take care.